What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on the channel, and I know it has been a bit since I last uploaded a video on this channel, and the last time I did make a video, it was when I attempted to predict the NBA Finals, and the Dallas Mavericks made myself and a lot of people look like fools because I predicted Dallas to win the series in 7 games. Obviously, that did not happen. The Boston Celtics, gentlemen, swept the Mavs and captured their 18th championship, and they now have the most rings out of any team in the NBA. But now we are in the offseason, and there is already a lot going on across the league. The NBA draft just wrapped up yesterday. I'm recording this the day after the draft. I do want to touch on the draft in this video because I thought it was one of the more interesting drafts in recent memory, but I do want to start with NBA free agency and trades, and I want to start with the New York Knicks because they have made the most significant trade of the offseason so far, acquiring Mikal Bridges from the Brooklyn Nets. And when you look at where the Knicks are, they had a tremendous season last year, number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, arguably could have went to the Eastern Conference Finals if they were healthy. I predicted that they would lose in the first round to the Philadelphia 76ers because I just didn't think that they would be able to overcome all those injuries that they sustained. They proved me wrong. They really hounded Jalen Brunson in the first round, but guys like Donte DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Deuce McBride, all their other auxiliary players stepped up. OG Anunoby in that first round, and they were able to beat the Sixers, but then the injuries caught up to them against Indiana. OG Anunoby got hurt, Bojan Bogdanovic was already out, Mitchell Robinson got injured, and to top everything off, Jalen Brunson broke his left hand, or wrist I believe, in Game 7, and that was all she wrote for the New York Knicks. But the Knicks did what I think was a great idea. They addressed a glaring need on their team, which is more scoring around Jalen Brunson, and you get a guy in Mikal Bridges who averaged 19 points per game last season with the Brooklyn Nets and really showed that he has a complete and total offensive package. He's a 3-level scorer. He can get to his spot anywhere on the floor, 3-point line, mid-range, get to the rim. He was putting up mostly empty stats last year on a Nets team that obviously everybody knew they weren't going to make the playoffs. They weren't really going to contend for everything or anything. And then it really looked like the Nets were trying to center their rebuild around Mikal Bridges because they were in the trade rumors for guys like Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, trying to build something around him. But ultimately, they decide to enter a complete and total rebuild, trade Bridges, get 5 first-round picks for the New York Knicks. And look, you can look at this trade and say that the Knicks gave up 5 first-round picks, but they are trying to capitalize on this window they have because as of right now, they are definitely championship contenders. And as of right now, you could argue they are the second-best team in the Eastern Conference and the biggest threat to knock off the Boston Celtics. And when I look at what the Knicks have, Jalen Brunson, if he's healthy, one of the best guards in the league, can put up 30 points a game in his sleep, really. OG Anunoby coming back on a new extension, 5 years, $212 million. One of the best two-way players in the league. Not known for his offense, but can come in and give you offensive production when you need him to. And obviously, one of the best defenders in the NBA, which is why the Knicks decided to acquire him at the trade deadline. And he made an instant impact on that team because when he was in the starting lineup, they had an insane record or something. They only lost around like 5 or 6 games when he was in the starting lineup. They're a very good team when OG Anunoby is healthy. Donte DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, guys who can really do it all, defend, score, really do everything. And when you look at Josh Hart, great rebounding guard as well. That's something that comes in handy in the playoffs, getting offensive rebounds. A lot of the reason the Knicks were able to be so successful in the postseason last year, despite not making it to the conference finals, they were able to win games just off of out-hustling and just putting in more effort than their opponent. And when you bring guys like that back, it's going to be a very hard combination to stop. Mitchell Robinson is going to come back from injury. Isaiah Hartenstein is a free agent, so it's kind of undecided where he is going to go. They traded Bojan Bogdanovic in the deal to the Nets, so they lost him, and I thought that was a good pickup for them around the trade deadline last year because Bojan Bogdanovic was a 20-point per game scorer on a Detroit Pistons team that wasn't winning any games, wasn't really doing anything, but he had a chance to prove himself on a contender, but ultimately couldn't stay healthy with the New York Knicks. And so I think, and then Julius Randle too, you can't forget about Julius Randle. I'm wondering what his role is going to be on this team because when I look at him, his regular season numbers are great. He can put up great numbers, but in the postseason, he's either not healthy or when he is, he's just flat out not producing. I'm sorry. When you look at what Julius Randle has done in the playoffs, one of the biggest playoff droppers in the NBA, and it's not even close. You can look at the stats, regular season compared to postseason. He just does not show up for the postseason. So I'm interested to see what role he's going to have with this team, if any. And one thing you have to look at with Mikal Bridges going to the New York Knicks is he's been one of the healthiest players in the league, never missed a game due to injury, Iron Man of the NBA. But Tom Thibodeau is a guy who likes to play his guys a lot of minutes. The Knicks play a very physical style of basketball. They love to play very physical defense, and I'm wondering how that's going to hold up on Mikal's body, because we know he can play an 82-game season. That's not the problem. I'm just wondering how physical Tom Thibodeau is going to have those guys playing. Is that going to take a toll on his body in any way, shape, or form? Obviously, knock on wood, we want everybody healthy for the playoffs, but it is definitely something to pay attention to, given the type of coaching style that Tom Thibodeau has. But I mean, look, the Knicks are going to be a great team. And when you look at the outlook of the Eastern Conference, I obviously have the Celtics at the top. Not even of just the East, they're the best team in the league. They should be favored to repeat next year. I'm not sure if they will, just because in this era of the NBA, there's so much parity now, and there's been key injuries every postseason since like 2020, 2021. So it's not a given that these teams are just going to stay healthy and repeat, because I thought that the Bucks were going to repeat after they won. I thought that the Nuggets were going to repeat. And so I'm entering this season being cautious about the Celtics and their chances to repeat, because you really just never know. But when healthy, they're easily the best team in the league. Drew Holiday, what a great impact he had on that team. Derek White coming back next year. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, nothing really needs to be said about them. They're two spectacular players. Kristaps Porzingis, another guy who just makes them really unstoppable, given how he can stretch the floor, score at all three levels, and he's a monster on the defensive end. You look at what he did in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. He had one of the best return from injury games really in the NBA that we've seen in a long time. Came back, made it look easy. Wasn't able to finish the rest of the series, but I mean, the Celtics are just so good, so it didn't really look like they missed him that much. And then you have guys like Al Horford too. Finally won his first championship. He's going to be eager to come back and ready to they're going to be ready to defend their title. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the East stacks up to them. Milwaukee is obviously a team that you have to look at. Damian Lillard and Giannis and Chris Middleton all returning next year. The second year of the Dame and Giannis experiment. Doc Rivers gets a full year under his belt as Bucks head coach. And there's already rumors swirling around that Doc wants to make some moves to retool this roster, because when you look at the Bucks, not much. The main thing that stands out about the Bucks is they're old and they're not that athletic. Brook Lopez was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist last year, completely fell off defensively this year, wasn't looking like the same guy. Can obviously still stretch the floor and hit threes, but when you have to play constant drop coverage in the postseason against Eastern Conference teams that have really good guards like Tyrese Halliburton, who they played in the first round, guys like Jalen Brunson, obviously, guys like that. It's not sustainable when you have to play that all the time. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how the Bucks are going to be able to retool their roster this offseason. So that's a team. Obviously, the Sixers are always in the conversation, but Joel Embiid, he's always a question mark when it comes to staying healthy in the postseason. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to rely on him to give me a full playoff series of healthy Joel Embiid, because when you look at the Sixers against the Knicks, Embiid's numbers were good. They lost in the first round, but he looked like he was playing on one leg virtually the entire series, and so he was not 100%. Tyrese Maxey is a baller. I'm sure he's going to have a great season next year, but I still think that the Sixers are missing one more wing go-to guy, kind of like the Knicks. They're missing that wing scorer that can ultimately take them over the top, and we all know Tobias Harris is not going to be that guy. And so they need to get somebody else in there. Brandon Ingram is a guy that is looking for a new spot. Maybe they trade for him. We know they have interest in bringing Jimmy Butler back, but it's looking like he's going to stay in Miami for the foreseeable future, at least until next offseason. And then you obviously have teams like Indiana and Orlando, really young teams that shocked a lot of people this year. They're going to get better too. The Magic have a ton of cap space. They're interested in guys like Klay Thompson and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. If they're able to surround Paolo Banchero with shooters, they're going to be a very good team next year, because I think Banchero is one of the best young players in the league. I just love the way he plays, his skill set, his attributes, everything about them. I mentioned Indiana. Cleveland is a team. Are they going to run it back with the same team next year? Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. Obviously, Jared Allen was injured for a majority of the postseason. So I'm really interested to see what the Cavs and really the whole entire Eastern Conference is going to look like next year. But bottom line, the Celtics are still the favorites, but the Knicks are right there with them, because I think they're built to beat the Boston Celtics. They have very good wing defenders, which is what you need. Get in the grill of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and force them really to get out of their element. Don't let them kick out and kick it out to open shooters for three, because that's what they love to do. So the Eastern Conference is going to be very fun next year. But as I mentioned at the start of this video, I do want to briefly touch on the NBA draft, because it was a very interesting NBA draft. We have all these international players that are just taking over the draft. The number one pick was obviously a player from France, Zachary Rissochet, and there were 3 French players, I believe, picked in the top 10. So I don't know what's going on in France. They're like making these guys in a lab or something, because they are producing some very talented basketball players. Victor Wembanyama, the last pick, or not the last pick, the number one pick in last year's draft, is going to be one of the best players in the NBA, if not the best player in the league, probably within the next 2 to 3 years. So yeah, very interesting NBA draft. But the headline was it's interesting to say this, the headline of the 2024 NBA draft was actually the second round, and in particular the 55th pick, because the Los Angeles Lakers selected Bronny James, son of LeBron James. And people were kind of expecting this. He entered the draft after just 1 year of college ball at USC. He had not an interesting freshman season, but one that he would say he didn't really get to showcase all of his abilities. The cardiac arrest incident last summer really put a dent into his season. He had to miss some time. And really, USC was just not that good overall. They had a horrible year given what they were supposed to live up to. Isaiah Collier, who was drafted by the Utah Jazz at the end of the first round, number one prospect coming out of high school. He was supposed to really come in and make an impact, but they just never really found their footing, and it was just an off year for the Trojans. And so Bronny still decided to enter the draft. And I mean, look, the Lakers picked him up, and I'm not surprised that they drafted him, because I mean, LeBron has always said that it is a goal of his to play with his son. And really, I think this just speaks to LeBron's longevity. The fact that he was putting up 27, 7, and 7 when you can look at pictures of him holding Bronny in his arms, celebrating going to the finals, and you can fast forward basically almost 20 years later, and he's still putting up those exact same numbers. One of the best players in the league, the only guy left from the 2003 draft class. All the players drafted in 2003 are not in the league anymore, and LeBron is not only still in the league, he's still one of the best players around. And so, look, I'm rooting for Bronny. I hope he has a successful NBA career. I don't think he's ready to step on an NBA court as of today. He wasn't really ready to do it in college. And so, me personally, if I was him, I would have stayed in college for at least 1 more year, develop my skills a little bit more. But I mean, he's going to have a chance to do that. Maybe he plays for the South Bay Lakers this year, the G League team. Maybe he actually gets a chance to make an appearance in an actual NBA game with LeBron. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, I just wanted to briefly touch on that. And then really one last note to end the video. The international players are taking over the league. I mentioned it at the start of this bit, but the NBA is becoming international. Some of the best players in the league, arguably the top 3 to 5 guys, are all international players. You see international guys getting drafted left and right, and I think that just speaks to the development system overseas, being taught the fundamentals of the game, being NBA ready at 18 to 19 years old. Because when you look at guys who grow up in the United States, they're playing AAU games, constantly playing games, not really getting a chance to practice. They play 1 year of college basketball. When guys used to stay in college for at least 3 to 4 years, and college basketball actually used to mean something, and fans actually got a chance to get attached to these guys. But now when guys commit to college, everybody knows they're only going to be there for not even a full calendar year. They're literally just there to play basketball for a couple of months, and then they're going to try to go to either the NBA or the G League. And I think American players just aren't being developed the right way and being developed the way that Europeans are. And I think that's why we're seeing international guys take over the game. And so let me know what you guys think about that. I just wanted to briefly give my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think about the New York Knicks trading for Mikal Bridges. Are they the best team in the East, the second best team in the East? Where do you put them in the hierarchy of Eastern Conference teams? Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on Bronny being drafted. Do you think he deserved to be drafted? Do you think he will actually play in an NBA game with LeBron this year? Will that happen? How good do you think he will be in the NBA? Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to like, comment, share, and find the rest of my content linked in the description.